Hi everybody, I'm sitting here with David Hensey. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So David is from API.
I am indeed.
Yes. And we've had many API discussions over the years.
We have very good ones.
Yes. For anybody that doesn't remember, I guided them, but one of the earliest API 1608s, because Hunter Crowley, who, for those of you that are on Gearspace, as it is now called, will know he's around badge 62, a drummer, was a drummer in the Warlocks.
Okay.
He's a production sound guy and a good friend of mine and a gear fanatic. And I think he bought 01 or 02 or something.
Wow.
And he just freaked out on the console. And when he knew we were sort of in this minefield because we had gone to Sausalito to track the record and spent 3 months there and really not come away with very much because the console was in such disrepair, and we decided to go to their studio to track the rest of the album. And all they had was some outboard pre's. He's like, dude, get a 1608. It's going to do everything you need. And relatively, I know this is a lot of money, but relatively inexpensive. So I'm doing quite a lot on that record, going to talk about it. So I wanted to talk specifically about the console. And our good friend, Mike Arango, who we've been tracking with today, has a 1608. Can you take us through the feature set on the 1608? When I had it with the Fray, we didn't have this fancy screen. This is for the new kids.
Yeah, Final Touch automation.
It's amazing.
I don't know if you want to start there, if you want to end there, but
maybe end there, because of course we've got the obvious things, like we've got 16 channels of VU on every channel.
Sure.
Which is gorgeous.
So it's a 16 channel console. It has 8 buses and then a main program bus. The console normally would come loaded with 550As. It's all 500 series compatible. So we have 550A, our classic EQ 4-band, and then you would get 560s, which is our graphic EQ. But 16 channels of API mic.
Mike is very cheekily putting in some purple ones there.
Yeah. But he's balancing it out with a couple of our new API Select SV14 and SV12.
But it does speak to the kind of utilitarian aspect of this. The fact is, 500 series.
Yep.
That's API's invention.
Yes.
I mean, they're not copying anybody. You guys came up with it, and it's that pretense there. Because we've got to remember, for those of you that are younger than either of us, it was designed like this because if something went wrong, you could just literally unscrew it, pull it out, drop in a new module, or take it out, quickly repair it, and drop it back in.
Yeah. I mean, the modular setup makes it so serviceable. It's so easy to, pull out. The input module is one module. You take out 2 screws, you can pull the whole thing out. So fully analog, you get 16 channels of our classic mic pre. And, the biggest question that we get is what's the difference between this mic pre and a 312 or
what is the difference?
3124 or a 512V or C.
Or even a 212.
Yeah. All those mic pre's,
yeah.
they're all the same. It's about form factor and feature set. For instance, a 512V in your lunchbox has a variable output. That's just a fader, which you have here on the console.
Right.
So these are all the same mic pre's, they're all using Saul Walker, our co-founder's original circuit design, 2520 op amps, proprietary output transformer. They have like 65 dB of gain. These mic pre's all have that same punchy mid-forward,
That's amazing.
The API sound that you're used to.
See, I didn't know that because I had 12 channels of 212s, and I was always sort of led to believe by the experts that I was really, compromising myself by having the 212s because it didn't sound as good as the 312s. But you're telling me they're exactly the same pre's.
They're the same. The architecture of them are the exact same. So.
Well, you heard it first.
There you go.
From the horse's mouth.
There you go.
There you go. So it's fantastic. So classic pre.
Yep.
Loaded with 550As as stock, but you can obviously swap them out for Bs. Or the 560, which of course the graphic modules. As we see here, Mike's got a real plethora of different units. Everything's obviously patchable, so you can have a compressor up there. It's not automatically like, just because you put it in there, it comes up on the channel.
Yeah, there's on the rear panel. There's 1/4 inch patch points for everything for the EQs if you want to put them somewhere else in the desk. You also have the 8 slots in your in the center section, which are pre-wired to come down into the actual stereo return. So one big difference in this versus the one that you had with the Fray is that one would have had 8 mono returns on rotary,
It did, yeah.
which can be a bit finicky, and it's just ergonomically it's just hard to get in there.
Yeah.
With everyone doing parallel compression and different different things with their returns, it made sense for us to, when we did this update, the Mark II came out about 4 or 5 years ago. We changed that to have 4 stereo returns.
Yep.
So you can have a pair of, we've got a pair of compressors there that we can now bring down into return 1. So you can do, parallel compression right on the console.
What I loved about the console was I went direct out from the preamp, straight to the DAW.
Yep.
And then I had my mix coming up on fader. So I could sit there. So I went direct out there. And so this, when I had Flynn or Aaron leaning over me or the band leaning over me, they could do whatever they wanted down here. Oh, I need a bit more of that. And that was great. But I went straight from here. Then, because I do things like top and bottom mics on the toms, but I don't want to print 2 tracks, I sent everything through auxiliaries.
Yep.
I ended up using every single inch of this console, like everything was being utilized. And it was pretty insane. I was tracking a band live. I had this, and then I also had 4 3124s. And so I had 32 channels of mic pre's and covered everything.
Yeah.
Because we recorded everything live and then we just do overdubs.
There was it was intentional from our engineers at API to make the 1608 fit, obviously the footprint, but also various workflow scenarios, because everyone, this console appeals to a very wide group of people, whether it's a home studio, project studio, commercial studio. So to have routing that allows you to do different things all in the console, there's more in there that you would necessarily need.
Sure. I used it all.
But you used it all.
I did use it all. Because we had rack and floor toms, so we're immediately using two of those. But then of course I could then assign it to like 5 and 6. So on other channels it had another purpose.
Right.
So it wasn't like I was tying in. I really like that feature because it's a small footprint, obviously, for a console. It's not massive. So I could have like top and bottom for the toms, being assigned to one input on Pro Tools. But then I had 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 being utilized on there. So I ended up with a lot of settings.
Yeah.
And I could do parallel stuff. I could set up other mixes. I could do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, with this console, even though it's a 16-channel console, you actually have 32 inputs to the mix bus.
Yeah.
If you get creative. And one of the ways we do that is obviously we have the auxes and the returns, but on the 8 main buses, you can bring stereo line level directly onto the bus and have level control there. So if you wanted to get, in a pinch, you could really maximize at mix. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful console. And I love making a record on it. So tell us a little bit about this then, this bad boy over here, the screen.
Yeah, so this is our Final Touch automation. This is not a VCA-based automation system. These are still analog faders. In fact, if I turn the power off of the automation, the faders are still, working.
Right.
So you have digitally controlled motorized faders. For the automation, you have control of fader, mute, and insert on, where's my insert? Used to looking at a 2448.
Yeah.
On all 16 channels, plus on the stereo returns as well. So you have, those can be automated. So there's a couple things that we really love about this. It is, there's no external computer. It is, the brains live underneath the 7-inch touchscreen display. There's an HDMI output on the back of the console. If you want to have this displayed on a bigger screen, you can do that.
So how do I go into write if I want to write on a channel?
So we've got MIDI over USB. He doesn't have it wired up for this right now, but USB cable would do the time code, or you could do SMPTE.
Right.
If you wanted to ARM, so this would be in the DAW screen. So you actually have DAW control, and we have DAW specific parameters for Luna, Logic, Pro Tools, Studio One, and then we have a generic template. So you have the ability to enable in banks of 8 up to 32 faders at a time, depending on the size of the console. And then you would actually use these buttons down here to enable write. So
right.
And you can also read automation from your Pro Tools for fader mute and insert as well, or from your DAW.
That's amazing. So what's this control here?
So this is showing you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So there's a couple different things going on here.
Yeah.
We have conductive plastic faders. So, and this is a user interface portion that you can turn off if you find it distracting. But if you want to get real surgical, it'll show you the channel, the level, and its relative position.
Mm-hmm.
For each of the faders.
Crazy, just by touching it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it doing? Putting a very small charge through there? You interrupt? How's it doing?
That is beyond my understanding.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm barely touching these to light it up. I mean, I'm trying to touch it the softest possible way. Whatever cool. I do, it lights up. Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. You touched the fader. How do you know? It lit up. That's incredible.
It's like if we were doing an automation project, if we were doing this at Mix, you'd go in here to songs and you would literally tap it go in here, new project, you have to start a project.
Right.
But yeah, all the mix files for the automation moves, they save to an SD card.
Wow.
You've got a USB dongle here as well if you want to have a keyboard, but it will pull up a full QWERTY keyboard. So when I start a project, then you have project, song, and then your mixes. So every time time code starts or stops, it'll automatically save your automation moves. But so basically we can select faders through here and put them in any of the main modes, manual mode, your Butch Vig and Dave Grohl mixing a Foo Fighters record. Nice. Or I can put them all in read mode. It'll read anything that's been written, obviously. Update will read automation until you make a move, and then it will snap back to its previous location.
Nice.
And then write, obviously, writes the automation. So
that's incredible.
There's actually a lot more depth in there too that,
but it's a lot quicker than my 4000.
It's just so fast. And the cool thing too is when you make these changes, it'll actually create a new mix tree every time you do a change. So if you want to kill a mix, you can easily do that. If you want to create a snapshot, you're taking a lunch break, you hit a snapshot, and that could be your session template, or it can be, just kind of where you last left off. You also have groups in here as well. So on this console, you get 2 dedicated group master faders. So no audio passes through these. These are just used for your group. So let's say that I have, I've got some drums here on these channels. Tap that, hit new. I can go in and name my group. Drums. The first fader I touch is going to be my master. Mm-hmm. And then any other fader I add to it. If I hit one that I didn't mean to, tap it again and it deselects. Hit OK. And now I've got a group.
That's amazing.
And the cool thing is, although you only have 2 dedicated group master faders, you can make any fader on the fader deck a group master. So I can go in and create a second group for my guitars here. We won't take the time to name it. And now I've got a group that started here, and it's relative position. So
that's awesome.
Great fun. Yeah, so it's really quick.
You can see how it works logarithmically. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
So yeah, Final Touch is we're really proud of it. We think it's the best automation that we've ever made. And the cool thing now is we use the same automation in all of our automated consoles. Mm-hmm. So this is the same automation that we put in the 1608, the 2448, the Legacy Access, and even the Vision, all use the same one.
That's super smart.
It's serviceable. It doesn't require, it's not limited by updates in your DAW because it's all self-contained.
Well, we all know and we all complain about the fact that every time Apple or Windows or whatever updates, and you have to, God bless it. Yeah. No, that's amazing. Yeah. Well, I'm going to mix this track that Mike tracked. So I'll mess around with this. Hopefully, Mike, you know it really well because I'll probably be asking some dumb questions. Is that true? You know it really well, the automation?
I know it all right. Yeah.
No, he says he knows it all right.
I don't know.
Okay, so stay tuned for that one.
Very good.
Wonderful. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. It's like an old friend. I'm really happy to be back using them. Well, that's not true. I've actually used the 1608 now, maybe 28 other times. This is an incredibly common console, which is good to hear.
Yeah, I think we have about 700 of the 1608s between Mark 1 and Mark 2s out in the world right now. And yeah, it's definitely been our most successful console ever. And yeah, we love them.
I'm glad I was right there early with them. I did a feature, I don't remember which magazine it was, Sound on Sound or Mix Magazine, on the console, talking about how we made the Frey record on it. Every inch of it, like I said, I used, and I think it's the perfect kind of thing for me because it's a small format, but it feels like I'm on a real console. I don't feel like I'm twiddling around with some plastic. He's looking at other things that are plastic. Sorry, other manufacturers. But it's a real console. I'm working on a real console, but it's in a format that actually makes some sense, especially for so many people now. Packs a lot of punch.
And it sounds the exact same as any of our large format consoles.
That's the thing that gets me. That it's got the same mic pre's as the larger formats, and at a fraction of the cost.
Mm-hmm.
We just sold another 700, but we didn't sell any of the really expensive ones. You know what just happened there. You see what just happened there.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. So please say thank you to David. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that we've tracked here. We may have already released it, but there's stuff that we're tracking here, and we're going to do a little bit more talking about this because we're obviously going to break down that Frey album, and I'm going to listen to a bunch of tracks and go through them, so you're going to hear how the console sounds. Thanks, everyone. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios, goodbye, tschüss.